In 1984, Lower Merion won its first Central League title since 1968 in a thrilling 1-0 overtime victory against Strathaven. In 1985, they won their second title in as many years, coming from behind to beat Strathaven again 2-1. The question now was, could the 1986 team make it 3 in a row? If they were to pull it off, it would have to be with a young, relatively inexperienced team. Having graduated 15 seniors, including high scorers Joey Molinas, Tristan Manis, and Alan Greaves, as well as defensive standouts David Urban, Steve Stewart, and Reed Slogoff, not many people were giving them much of a chance. However, this year's team was a nice mix of a little experience, a lot of youth, and a competitive drive that would take them a long, long way. The first thing to be rebuilt would have to be the defense. In goal would be the 1985 JV standout, co-captain Ken Morgenstern, one of 6 seniors on the squad. Also in goal was senior Eric Stein, who had the abilities to be a starter for many other Central League teams. At back, senior co-captain Rich Ruggiero was the only returning letterman and would have to be the building block for this brand new unit. Holding down one of the wingback positions was senior Levy Shapiro, whose height, aggressiveness, and steady play would fit in nicely. Junior Michael Goldberg would be playing the other wingback, although he also played a great midfield when called upon. Sophomore Jimmy Van Dusen took up the sweeper spot and got better and better with every game. Junior Jimmy Schwartz was also an integral part of this new defense and added another dimension at stopper with his strong foot and long throw-ins. Rounding out the defensive unit was sophomore Andrew Sherman, who would provide the speed needed at wingback to contain the many fast forwards that the Aces would be facing throughout the season. Midfield was the only place where the Aces could boast of experience, as they had returning letter winner junior Drew Misher anchoring the center spot. Another junior letterman, David Alton, would be a very strong force for the Aces all year and would also play the center position on many occasions. Junior Greg Nepper added the skill and aggressiveness to make this LM midfield one of the best in the area. Senior Rich Rizzo was the shot in the arm that every team needs at midfield. And when he was on the field, things began to happen. Sophomore Jason DeLulo got most of his playing time at midfield, but would later play a key part in the Aces' playoff success in goal. If the Aces were to lead the Central League in scoring, as they had done for the past 3 years, they would need a big year from junior returnee Matt Fine. Sophomore Chris Schreiner made things happen up front with his hustle and determination, and along the way he picked up 6 goals, including 2 playoff game winners. Junior Scott Donovan also scored some very important goals for the Aces, and when he was right, the offense clicked. Asaf Shapashnik also got his share of goals and had the moves to drive defenders crazy. Junior Reuben Cohen added still another potential scorer and also could go to the goal with the best. Senior David Franchise Serksner rounded out this explosive offense, and with his speed and thunderous shot was a threat from anywhere on the field. Aces opened their 1986 season up at Moravian Academy with still a lot of questions to be answered. They started the game, however, with a good passing sequence right off the opening tap. It was obvious from the start that the referees were going to let a lot of things go, including a foul of Reuben Cohen and a handball in the box.
Oh, come on.
Moravian had the first serious chances as they sent in a dangerous cross and then let go with a good shot. It was the Aces, however, getting on the board first with a nice shot by Drew Misher coming from a Chris Schreiner head pass. Late in the first half, it was Misher again on a good head chance with just seconds remaining. Moravian continued its hard style of play. Again, Reuben Cohen was the victim, but it still went unnoticed by the referees.
Oh, my. What the?
Then, midway through the third period, on a quick throw-in play, Moravian knotted the game at 1.
Gotta use the keeper.
Despite a good Aces scoring opportunity off a short corner and a Scott Donovan breakaway, the game ended in a 1-1 tie.
You got it?
Upper Merion was next on the schedule as David Alton wasted no time in getting a good shot off an early LM corner kick. Upper Merion took the lead, however, capitalizing on a defensive error, and the Aces were in the hole early. Early in the second period, Drew Misher tied it up on a pretty goal off a long throw-in by Levi Shapiro.
Come to the ball, Sam.
About 8 minutes later, Reuben Cohen made it 2-1 Aces with another goal started from a long throw-in, this time by Jimmy Schwartz.
David. Show the ball, David. Show the ball, David.
In the third period, Drew Misher had a great opportunity to make it 3-1 on still another long throw-in, but couldn't find the handle.
Not too deep, Reuben. Not too deep. Drop back, Chris. Drop back, Chris. Oh, my God.
Then in the third period, Upper Merion tied it again on a bullet from 25 yards out. 6 minutes later, on their bid to take the lead, they hit the crossbar on a corner. The Aces weren't through yet, as David Alton got a nice shot off a good give and go.
Suck it up, guys. Get it. Oh, good. Oh, right there,
Finally, with under 15 seconds to go in the game, Chris Schreiner missed a golden opportunity to give the Aces their first win of the season, but it was not to be.
Beautiful.
Two ties in their first two games was not what LM was looking for going into their first league game with Pencrest.
Fuck that.
However, despite an early chance by Pencrest in the first period, the Aces went on to collect their first win of the season, 2-1, on goals by Matt Fine and Asaf Shaposnik. It was now time for the first annual Lower Merion Invitational Soccer Tournament, featuring the Aces against Episcopal, while Harriton played host to Delaware Valley. The Aces had the first good chance as Scott Donovan just misses on a shot from the slot.
There it is. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, jeez.
EA came back on a nice head shot of their own off a Gabby Rose center. Fine then took a beautiful through pass from Drew Misher, but couldn't convert, and the game remained scoreless. It was Misher to Fine again, but this time it worked, and LM had a 1-0 lead. However, Episcopal tied it up at the end of the first half when a misplayed ball to the keeper resulted in a giveaway goal.
That's the outlet.
The Aces then really started to put the pressure on as good opportunities by Matt Fine and Michael Goldberg could not find the back of the net.
Go, Matt! Make it, bring it down.
Final minute and a half, it was the Churchmen receiving a penalty kick as a result of a handball in the area, and Gabby Rowe made no mistake, and suddenly LM's records fell to a dismal 1-1-2.
Now, the last 2 years have been especially good for the Lower Merion soccer and its fans, as 2 years ago the Aces made it all the way to the state final championship game where they did lose to Neshaminy 1-0, and last year they finished second in the district. And they've also won the last two Central League titles, but this year this is going to be a totally different and vastly new-look Lower Merion squad, with graduation taking away a lot of the stars from the past 2 years. Now, the one area that's been hit really very hard for the Aces at the start of this year has been the defense. And I asked Coach Bob Robinson about how his defense has been doing thus far.
It's a new group. We had 3 sophomores that played last year that are back, and 1 senior actually from the varsity. So it's a brand new group, and a lot of work. We've been working hard, and we still have a lot of work to do. So.
Of course, the biggest, I guess, area maybe that needs work is your defense. You've had to totally bring in new people for that.
Right, we've revamped the defense, right, and that's where we've been a little shaky. The coordination between goalkeeper and the backs has not been as good as we wanted.
I guess that's probably the hardest thing, though, to really get going as a defense, getting them used to playing together.
Yes, we had one back, Rich Ruggiero, who's doing a good job at wingback, but the middle of the field, we really had to concentrate on that, and we needed these games. We need all these games before we get into the league, although we already started the league, but that's why we scheduled as many as we could.
Now, offensively, looks like Matt Fine is probably going to be one of the main focuses for you there.
Well, Matty's speed and the way he can cross the ball and of course score is one of our I guess our main points up there, but he gets a lot of attention too. So he's been knocked around a little bit. I just hope he can hold up under it.
And one of the things with all these new people, it, I guess, takes a while to really get them going. And have you progressed as quickly as you would have liked, or maybe you never do really progress as quickly as you'd like?
No, we haven't. I'm not happy with the way we're playing. Actually, we're really not playing that well. We have spurts, but things just aren't coming together yet. We definitely need more work. Yeah.
Of course, being the two-time defending Central League champions, everyone is certainly going to be out for you, and is that going to make it a little more difficult?
Well, it puts some pressure on it. We've been trying to relieve that pressure by telling them that they shouldn't worry about that, but it does put some pressure on them. We had the opener in the league yesterday was in the rain, I guess a little sloppy, but we came through it with a win against Pencrest. But we're not the favorite, I don't think, so that takes a little of the pressure off too. So.
A lot of analyzing was done on the part of the coaching staff, as the talent appeared to be there, but the team just wasn't clicking. In the 5-hour break between games, several changes were made and players were switched to different positions to see if they could turn things around. Well, it seemed, for the moment at least, to pay off, as LM went out and blasted Delaware Valley 6-zip. It was Matt Fine putting the Aces ahead to stay early in the first period with a power goal from the left side. Next, it was Scott Donovan's turn on a 15-yard blast.
Another one.
In the first half, Rich Ruggiero was awarded a penalty kick and converted to make it 3-0. Grizzo scored a nice hustling goal to keep things going, as LM was now playing with much more confidence. Reuven Cohen, who had been around the goal all day, finally tallied to make it 5-zip. David Alton ended the scoring late in the game, and it looked like the Aces had gotten the shot in the arm that they needed to continue into their Central League season. Next, it would be arch-rival Strathaven, and the Aces would get a chance to see just how good their revamped lineup would play. Right away, LM started moving the ball around crisply, and it led to a Drew Misher shot.
Go, Matt, go! Time! All right, good try, David.
Matt Fine opened the scoring on a nice feed from David Alton, and the Aces held an early 1-0 lead. A few minutes later, they had 3 good chances in close, but couldn't capitalize.
All he had to do was cut break it! Oh!
Early in the second quarter, Drew Misher made it 2-0 on a goal coming off a short corner, and the Aces were on their way. It was Reuven Cohen who had the next opportunity, but couldn't put it away as the Aces clung to a 2-0 lead after 3 periods. Strathaven then started to heat things up as they hit the crossbar on a shot from 18 yards out. Finally, the Panthers capitalized on a goal coming from a free kick, but it was too little too late as LM notched their second straight Central League win.
Yeah, you bonehead.
The Aces traveled to Springfield for their next game, and despite being the much better team, had a tough afternoon. Drew Misher put LM ahead on a beautiful 25-yard blast, but shortly thereafter, Springfield had a golden chance to knot it up as they were awarded a penalty kick. They failed to convert, however, and the follow-up was not allowed as the same player touched the ball twice in a row. LM then started to put a little more pressure on as Reuben Cohen and David Alton combined to set up a nice shot. Midway through the second period, Springfield's pressure finally paid off as they tied the game at 1. They weren't through yet, as they then hit the crossbar and also forced goalkeeper Ken Morgenstern to come up big on another play.
Get after it, Richard!
Yeah, Kenny!
From then on, it was all LM, as Matt Fine had 2 good chances, hitting the crossbar on the second.
Oh, damn it! Nice, David.
Come on, Matt!
David Alton finally broke the tie with a little over 5 minutes remaining and gave the Aces a 2-1 lead.
Carry, Matt! Get Chris to the wing! Oh, that's a trip!
Please, David!
Chris Schreiner hit the crossbar again with a good shot in the final minute of play, but the score remained 2-1, and the Aces came away feeling very fortunate. It was finally time for Radnor, and with the change in divisions, it would be the only game of the season between these 2 neighborhood rivals. Matt Fine got off the first good shot of the game early in the first period on a nice cutback move. Radnor then countered with a bullet of their own that hit the crossbar behind goalkeeper Ken Morgenstern. The Aces then hit the Radnor goalpost, but despite all these early chances, the game remained scoreless. Drew Misher opened the scoring in the second frame on a nice head goal coming from a Levi Shapiro throw-in. From then on, the Aces demonstrated their superior talent as they settled into their ball control game that resulted in a Matt Fine cross. In the third period, they struck again as junior Scott Donovan scored on a cross by Matt Fine, and Lower Merion had a 2-0 lead. In the defensive end, it was goalie Ken Morgenstern holding firm as he foiled a Radnor corner kick try. Another good opportunity by Matt Fine fell short, but early in the fourth quarter, it was Drew Misher again putting the game away with a ricochet blast from 20 yards. With this win, the Aces had defeated Radnor for the 3rd straight time, and in the process ran their league record to a perfect 4-0. The Pioneers of Conestoga were the next team on the schedule, and they boasted one of the best players in the league in midfielder Kirk Tebow. The Aces jumped out early on a goal by Scott Donovan in the first 5 minutes and were ahead to stay. Chris Schreiner kept things going, but his header hit the post and it remained a one-goal game. At the end of the first quarter, the Pioneers tied it up on a goal coming from a corner kick. Matt Fine got that goal back in the third period as the Aces again took a one-goal lead.
Come on, let's go, Matty. Matty, come on, Matty. Oh. Go, Matty. Go, Matt. Go, Matt. Oh, yeah. Good ball, Jake.
At the end of the third stanza, goalkeeper Ken Morgenstern hit his shins on the left post diving for a ball and had to come out of the game. Sophomore Jason DeLulo stepped in and finished up behind a good defensive effort by the LM backs, and the game ended 2-1. Upper Darby, one of the division favorites beginning the season, was next on the schedule. Matt Fine continued his hot streak with an early goal to stake the Aces to a 1-0 lead. Chris Schreiner made it 2-0 on a goal coming from a long throw-in by Levy Shapiro, and with only 8 minutes gone, the Aces had a stranglehold on their 6th straight league victory. In the third period, LM demonstrated one of their best ball movement sequences of the year, but Asaf Shaposnik couldn't finish it off, and the score remained 2-0.
Get on, Dave! Have it, David!
The Aces had several more good shots by Shaposnik, Matt Fine, and a header by Chris Schreiner, but it was the defense recording their second shutout on the way to improving the LM overall mark to a 7-1-2.
Come on, Matt! Yeah, Schreiner! No!
The Aces next went out of the league to play neighboring rival Haverford School. Sophomore Jason DeLulo was in the nets for the Aces as starter Ken Morgenstern was nursing a pair of bruised shins.
Come on, Michael!
Didn't take long for Jason to get some work as the Fords came out blazing and got a shot in the first minute of play.
We're slow to the ball! Yeah, Jason!
A couple minutes later, Haverford got on the board as DeLulo had to wonder what he had gotten himself into. After the Aces had settled down, they took over the game completely. It was Matt Fine tying it up on a nice feed from David Alton. Drew Misher put the Aces ahead to stay just 2.5 minutes later on a pretty pass from Greg Nepper. Right before halftime, it was Asaf Shaposnik from David Alton off a long throw-in by Levy Shapiro, and all of a sudden it was 3-1. Greg Nepper was probably the most surprised person on the field as his long direct free kick went into the upper left-hand corner for the Aces' 4th goal. Matt Fine, after taking a pass from Chris Schreiner, used a cutback move to score his 2nd goal of the game, and it ended 5-1 Lower Merion. LM next traveled to Pencrest to play the Lions on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. After a sluggish first period, the Aces came alive and got good scoring opportunities by Scott Donovan, who hits the post on his first shot and just misses on his second, and Chris Schreiner, who just shoots wide after a nice chop move. Chris Schreiner finally did break the ice on a nice pass from Scott Donovan in the third period, and the Aces had a 1-0 lead. Then the rains came, and the video man went, and after the third period, the game was called because of lightning. After an uneasy bus ride home, it was learned that the 1-0 score had held up, and the Aces extended their league record to 7-0 with their 9th win in a row. The weather didn't get any better 2 days later as LM took on winless Ridley. The Aces got goals from Chris Schreiner, Matt Fine, David Alton, Asaf Shapashnik, and Scott Donovan to notch a 5-0 win. Next, Springfield was back and were looking to avenge their 2-1 loss earlier in the season. Rich Rizzo started to make things happen and would later score one of LM's 2 goals. After Asaf Shapashnik missed an open net on a nice cross from Matt Fine, the Aces went on to score twice, the other coming on a penalty kick by Rich Ruggiero, and ended up with a 2-0 win. This victory clinched a Division I crown for the Aces, with still, incredibly enough, 4 games remaining.
Good job, Rich. Back to sports close-up. Now, when the Central League went into divisional play 3 years ago, the Lower Merion soccer team won its division the first 2 years, and of course they went on from there to win the Central League title also. Now, last Saturday morning, under less than ideal conditions, the Aces made it 3 in a row as they annexed their divisional crown, the earliest it has ever been done in the history of the league. Now, it's only 3 years, but still quite an accomplishment. Now, Rich Ruggiero scored on a penalty kick in the second quarter for a 1-0 lead, and the Aces doggedly hung on to that edge as we pick up the action in the fourth quarter. Lower Merion again in the white. Nice pass there to Rich Rizzo, and as you see, it doesn't matter how the ball goes in. That one just dribbled in, but a heck of a shot by Rich Rizzo. Really played extremely well in this game, and that gave the Aces a 2-0 lead. Now, you can't really tell there the condition of the field. It wasn't all that good, and you'll see what I mean by the conditions here is Kenny Morgenstern's going to come up with a nice save here as Springfield is vying to try and cut the lead. And there's the save, and look, he's looked like a drowning man. He can't look at that. He's trying to get the ball. He said, I can't get to it. But they cleared away, fortunately for him, out of danger, and the Aces went on to win the game 2-0 in this afternoon.
LM would next face Haverford High School for the first of 2 games in just 10 days. Early on, the Aces couldn't buy a goal as a long throw-in goes by 3 attackers with nobody ready to get ahead on the ball. The VCR battery running low, Drew Misher opened the scoring midway through the first period as he put a Matt Fine cross into the lower left-hand corner.
Hey, Matty. Look to get it over. Look to get it over. Just one move, Cam. That's it. Oh, Drew, be there.
Chris Schreiner and Scott Donovan then combined on a nice give and go as Schreiner's shot was saved.
Attack him, Chris. One move, Billy. Good ball, Scotty. Okay, Chris.
In their bid to tie the game, the Fords then hit the post on a free kick.
Got Graham. Yes. Start, please.
Again off a free kick, Haverford bounced the ball around in front of the LM net, but it was finally cleared.
Clear it out of there. Come on, call. And out, and out. Somebody.
Chris Schreiner then put the Aces up 2-0 on a nice pass from David Alton.
Oh, go, David.
Drew Misher and Jason DeLulo would later add second-half goals as the defense recorded their 4th shutout in a row and their 6th of their last 7 league games. Finally, the showdown with Division II leading Marple was here. The Tigers were undefeated and ranked very highly in the area and the state. Some good aces build-up leads to a melee in front of the Marple goal and almost results in an LM tally.
Oh, nice ball, Maddie.
However, on their first shot of the period, it was Marple taking the lead on a goal by their high scorer, Doug Pucella. That goal, the first given up by the Aces defense in their last 22 league quarters, didn't seem to bother them as they came right back with a 25-yard rope by Drew Misher and a head chance by Matt Fine off a nice cross by Michael Goldberg.
Over, Mike!
LM did get on the board in the third period, but a handball call nullified the tying goal coming from a long throw-in by Jimmy Schwartz. The Aces continued to pepper the Tiger goal as Matt Fine's shot goes wide, David Alton's shot off a corner is saved, and 3 successive attempts off a long throw-in are thwarted.
Fire, fire! Nice! Oh, nice! Oh, there it is! Yes! Go, go, go!
Marple scored again to take a 2-0 lead, but the Aces didn't die as they got fourth period goals from Asaf Shaposhnik and Greg Nepper to tie it at 2, and that's how it ended. Should these two teams meet again for the championship, it promised to be some game.
Go in! He's
With the Marple game by the board and a division title already in their pocket, Lower Merion traveled to Upper Darby to face a team who needed the game to keep pace for the second playoff spot in their division. The Aces applied some early pressure, with Michael Goldberg making a length of the field run and a shot, and then Matt Fine's cross finds Scott Donovan for another good opportunity. Finally, in the second period, Scott Donovan scores on a whirling left-footed blast to give the Aces a 1-0 halftime lead, and everything seemed to be right on track. Unfortunately, this was not the case, as Upper Darby struck back in the third to tie the game on a Gil Kang shot coming from a corner kick as the Aces defenders screamed for offsides. In the fourth period, Upper Darby would strike again, this time from a long throw-in, and the Aces never got back in the game.
Chris, move up here. Up here by the sweeper.
Just moments later, freshman Kang would make it 3-1 on his second goal of the game. Upper Darby finished out the scoring with their fourth unanswered goal midway through the fourth period, and it was all over but the shouting. This was the Aces' first league loss of the season and dropped their record to 10-1-1. Lower Merion ended its regular season with their first night game of the year at Haverford High School. They needed a strong showing to get back on track for the Central League Championship game the following Saturday. Well, they wasted no time as Levi Shapiro threw the ball into the goal mouth early in the game, and it went into the net off a forward back to give the Aces a 1-0 lead. For the next two periods, the Aces bombarded the Haverford goal but couldn't find pay dirt. First, it was Asaf Shaposnik in front of an open net. Next, it was a scramble in front off a Jimmy Schwartz long throw-in. Drew Misher took a nice pass from Chris Schreiner, but misses wide right. And Matt Fine gets two chances, one off a good inside-outside move, and the other coming from a long throw-in. Haverford came back with some good opportunities of their own as they hit the crossbar on a hard shot that goalkeeper Morgenstern gets a piece of, and again get another good shot on a cross from the wing. Midway through the final period, Rich Ruggiero converts a penalty kick to make it 2-0 and give the Aces a little breathing room. Matt Fine then puts the game away on a nice effort off a feed from David Alton, and Lower Merion is ready to play for their third straight Central League title in as many years. And even though the video man missed this goal, it did go in.
Number 4, Jim Van Dusen. Number 5.
Going into the final game of the season, Marple and Strathaven were tied for the Division II lead. In a strange series of events, Marple tied its last game with Radnor, coming back from a 2-0 deficit. But Strathaven failed to capitalize on the chance and dropped their final game to Conestoga 2-1. So Marple won Division II by a single point and would be the Aces' opponents in the Central League Championship game.
Number 15, co-captain Rich Ruggiero. Number 16, Dave Alton. And in goal, Ken Morgenstern. And a Lower Merion bench, head coach Bob Robinson.
The Aces really wanted their third straight title, and an early foul leads to a Drew Misher shot. It was Marple, however, getting on the board first, midway through the opening period, as poor communication leads to a Doug Pucella goal off a throw-in. Just 36 seconds later, the Aces struck back as a dangerous play call leads to a David Alton to Chris Schreiner goal, and it was tied at 1. Marple was a very physical team, but LM's Greg Nepper let them know that it was a two-way street. The Tigers didn't take this lightly, as they immediately took a cheap shot at goalkeeper Ken Morgenstern. Off the second quarter tap, Matt Fine hits the post and almost gives LM a 2-1 lead. A few minutes later, tempers started to flare and both teams were ready to go. Moments later, it was Drew Misher putting the Aces ahead to stay on a nice head goal coming from a long Levy Shapiro throw-in. Defensively, Ken Morgenstern had to make a great save off a Marple chance coming from a long throw-in. Midway through the third period, Scott Donovan had a golden chance to give the Aces a 2-goal lead, but couldn't find the open net. However, early in the fourth, he made up for it on a nice hustle goal, and the Aces had a 3-1 advantage. The Tigers came back on a scramble in front of the Aces' net, but couldn't capitalize. When it was all over, Lower Merion had convincingly won their third straight Central League title. There weren't many people at the beginning of the season that believed it would ever happen, but there were 19 guys wearing maroon and white that never ever doubted it.
Tonight as they won their third straight Central League soccer title, beating Marple Newtown 3-1 at Conestoga. What is so amazing about this feat is that never in the history of the Central League, which is about 20 years, has any team won 3 straight soccer titles outright. Lower Merion also is the only team since they've gone to divisional play 3 years ago to win the championship each of those first 3 years. Now today they're getting ready to face the winner of the Upper Moreland Council Rock game Thursday night at Marple Newtown in their first PIAA District 1 Class AAA playoff game. Now the Aces, you remember, last year finished second in the district and 2 years ago went on to the state finals, and this is somewhat of a different team than they've had the past couple of years, and we're going to talk to a couple of the integral parts. The leading scorer for the Aces this year is Matt Fine, and of course their fine goaltender Kenny Morgenstern. Okay, Ken, a totally new defense you guys had to start with this year, including yourself as a starting goaltender. Yeah, it was like you guys had never really missed a beat from the past couple of years.
Yeah, well, we started out the year and with, Greg Nepper was sweeping, and I was starting out in the goal, and things were kind of rough. We weren't working real well together. Something wasn't clicking. We haven't played together like in club ball or anything like that before. And as the year went on, we made a few changes. Jim Van Dusen moved back to sweeper, and Greg moved up to a halfback, where he's a little more comfortable. And everybody got to know each other and what everybody could do. And relied on everybody else, and things started to click together.
The surprising thing is that you guys only lost one game. Maybe while the defense was really getting together, you went through 11-1-1 in your division and pretty much controlled the action in that division the whole year.
Yeah, the preseason is when we had our rough spots. Once we hit the first game, everybody started to realize that was it, and that's when we really have to get things going, get things together. And as the year went on, things just, everything came together. When it came to the Upper Darby game, when we did lose, everybody was, I think, a little overconfident, and we already had our playoff spot. We had already clinched the division. It just, by the time when it came down to the important game, the Marple Newtown game, that's when everybody showed their stuff. Everybody played together, and that's the key to our team.
Was the evolution of the defense, was it just more of a gradual thing, or did it maybe come together in a particular game, or just was there a spot where you said, yeah, now they're really clicking?
No, that was definitely gradual. It took time. Rich Ruggiero has been playing varsity since he was a sophomore. He had the experience, and Levy Shapiro hasn't played, and Jim Van Dusen hadn't played before, and I hadn't played before, and Mike Goldberg hasn't played before. But, like I said before, once we got more comfortable with each other, things came together, and that's when we started to win. That's when the defense started. We earned our #1 defense in the league, and it showed, especially against the Marple Newtown game. When I got in trouble, the defense came to my help, and when they got in trouble, I came to their help.
Matt, you were one of the veterans back from last year, and with a lot of new faces, how did it feel? I mean, you had to provide some leadership, and both on and off the field, and the team came along very well. Were you surprised at maybe how well the team has done?
Well, I knew we had the talent, and we weren't sure how soon it was going to come together as a team, because we've played together for a long time out of LM's league, and with Chris Schreiner and Scott Donovan coming up, we knew they could provide some offense, and it was just whether or not how soon they would get used to the varsity level.
Okay, you were certainly counted upon, and you did score an awful lot of goals, but I guess another key was people like Chris Schreiner, Scott Donovan, your midfielders and all, who sort of picked the slack up. You guys have a very balanced scoring attack. Saturday night, you didn't score a goal, and yet you guys still won the game.
Well, I've only had one goal in the last 5 games, and three of those occasions, I think we scored three goals. And, with Drew has double figures in goals, and Donovan and Schreiner have, I think, about 5 goals each. So it is very balanced, and it helps us out because defense on other teams can't just key on one person. Because if they just key on one person, then we're going to hurt them somewhere else.
Okay, now you guys are going in the districts. Not a lot of the players have experience playing in the districts. You do. What's the difference now going into district play as opposed to the regular season?
Well, we can't afford a lackadaisical game like Upper Darby. Like we didn't come prepared, and they really took it to us. And we're playing teams that are 13-1, and with records just like ours and better. And if we have a bad game, our season's over.
Now, of course, one thing you guys can do, which the other two teams haven't done, is win a district title, and I guess maybe that's the next goal you're shooting for.
Yeah, well, we'd like to get as far into the districts as possible, and maybe the states, and another title would be great. Any farther than we.
In the first round of the District 1 playoffs, the Aces drew defending state champion Council Rock. The Indians had lost many key players from last year's state championship team, but they still were very quick and very physical, and early on it cost them, as Lower Merion's Matt Fine was pulled down in the penalty area. Rich Ruggiero made no mistake as he converted his 4th penalty kick, and the Aces had a 1-0 lead. Goalie Ken Morgenstern was not about to be bullied around as he established his box in the first period. He then had to make a reaction save off an Indian shot that hit the post. Council Rock continued to put on the pressure as a good opportunity developed from a cross, and another good shot is saved. LM's Chris Schreiner gave the Aces a little breathing room on a beautiful volley goal off a nice feed from David Alton, and it was 2-0. Just 56 seconds later, the Indians got it back on a goal coming from a long throw-in, and again it was a 1-goal game. After another Council Rock shot went high, Rich Rizzo mysteriously got hurt and had to come out of the game. The LM defense took over, and when the final whistle blew, the Aces had advanced to the second round with a hard-fought 2-1 victory. Next for the Aces was highly favored Downingtown, coming in with an impressive 16-2-2 record and ranked 5th in the state. From the opening kickoff, the Whippets knew they were in for a tough game as LM's Matt Fine gets off a good shot. One of Downingtown's biggest weapons was their free kick, but the Aces took that away early by playing their forwards off sides and giving Ken Morgenstern room to work.
Offside call. Free kick, Lower Merion.
Morgenstern came up big in the first period off a headshot coming from a free kick.
Downingtown.
LM then had 2 golden opportunities, one coming from a Schreiner to Fine to Mischer combination, and the other a Matt Fine header, but the game remained scoreless. The Aces drew first blood on a Drew Misher head goal off a long throw-in by Levi Shapiro. The Whippets came right back to tie it on a goal off a nicely placed corner kick with just seconds left in the first half.
The Marion player, defensive player, of course, must be 10 yards distant from the ball.
Matt Fine then put LM ahead to stay in the third period on a beautiful head goal set up by a flick-on by David Alton off a long throw-in by, you guessed it, Levi Shapiro. The Aces had a couple of chances to increase their lead on shots by Scott Donovan and David Alton, but couldn't hit the target. Midway through the fourth period, goalkeeper Ken Morgenstern went down and had to be carried off the field. Immediately, as Jason DeLulo came into the game as the new LM keeper, an eerie fog rolled in. DeLulo was forced to make a nice save here, and the Aces held on to win 2-1. This win put LM in the Final Four of the district and guaranteed them a spot in the state playoffs. Their next opponent was a familiar one, the Strathaven Panthers, who were playing their best soccer of the year. The Aces were forced to play without their all-league goalkeeper Ken Morgenstern, and once again sophomore Jason DeLulo was thrown into a pressure situation. LM got two good early chances, one on a Drew Misher head shot and another off a nice cross by Matt Fine, but fell short on both. At the 9-minute mark of the first period, it was the Panthers' Jason Luzak connecting on a perfect 20-yard volley shot, and Strathaven had a 1-0 lead. Being heated rivals for the past 3 years, tempers were on edge at the end of the first period. After playing very lackluster for 3 periods, the Aces came out blazing in the fourth. Drew Misher had a good opportunity to tie it up, as did David Alton, but it was just not to be. The game ended 1-0 as the powerful Aces offense had been shut out for the first time all season. Next came a district consolation game with Westchester East, a 2-1 loser to Great Valley in their semifinal for the 3rd and 4th place seedings in the state playoffs. The Aces wanted to find their scoring touch again and get back on the winning track for the state playoffs. A good passing sequence leads to an early Aces corner kick and a missed head by Drew Misher. Misher would later make up for it twice over. His first goal came early in the first quarter on a bullet off a Levi Shapiro throw-in. Misher scored again in the second on a head shot coming from a Matt Fine corner kick, and all of a sudden the Aces had found the net again, and with it took a 2-0 lead. East had a terrific opportunity to tie it up, but missed 3 times on the same play, and it looked like it was going to be LM's night. Matt Fine had a good chance to increase the lead to 3 when he took a nice through ball but couldn't convert. Asaf Shaposnik, however, did tally in the 4th on a well-placed shot, and it was 3-0 with 10 minutes left in the game. Eric Stein came into the game for Jason DeLulo, who continued to play well on the nets for injured goalie Ken Morgenstern. East introduced themselves to Eric right away, but the LM senior held his ground and preserved the 3-0 shutout. This win set up a rematch with powerful Bethlehem Freedom, the team that had eliminated the 1985 Aces in the state playoffs on penalty kicks just 1 year ago.
Marion 3, Westchester East 0.
Freedom was ranked 4th in the state and was regarded by their coach as the best team he's had since he's been there. With Morgenstern still out, Jason DeLulo would be back in the nets. Wasn't long before he got to see how good Bethlehem was, as they scored early in the first period on their first shot of the game. They continued to put the pressure on the young LM netminder, as first they hit the crossbar on a great header, then forced DeLulo to make a nice tip save on another shot. Looked real bad for the Aces, as still in the first period, Freedom was awarded a penalty kick on a handball violation in the box. However, they failed to capitalize, and it would later cost them dearly. Bethlehem continued to rough up Aces Matt Fine, who was playing one of his best games of the year. But it was Fine who had the last laugh, as he knotted the score at 1 in the second period on a beautiful through ball from Drew Misher. Lower Merion completely took over the game for a while, as they got a good shot from David Alton that just misses. Matt Fine hits the post with a rocket of his own, and later got another good chance that the Freedom goalie covers. Chris Schreiner put a nice headshot on goal toward the end of the 4th period, but the Freedom keeper makes the save. The final whistle blew, and for the second straight year, these two soccer powerhouses were in overtime. It looked like the end when Freedom apparently scored the go-ahead goal in the second overtime, but a handball violation nullified the tally, and it remained tied at 1. As the two 10-minute overtimes and the two 5-minute sudden victory overtimes came to an end, so did the camera battery. He managed to get one kick on tape, and LM's Rich Ruggiero, who was a perfect 5 for 5 during the season, missed to put the Aces in a hole. However, Matt Fine, Jimmy Van Duzen, Asaf Shaposnik, and Drew Misher all connected, and keeper Jason DeLulo made two pretty saves, and the Aces were into the second round. Their quarterfinal opponent would be District 1 runner-up Great Valley. Valley had been riding a wave that included 4 overtime wins in the last 5 games, 2 of them coming on penalty kicks. Patriots got a quick thrust off the opening tap and immediately pressured the Aces' goal. After being awarded a throw-in deep in the Aces' end, they got another chance to get on the board, but Ken Morgenstern, back in the lineup after a 3-game layoff, had things covered. The Aces got 2 golden opportunities of their own on free kicks. The first by Matt Fine was bobbled but covered by the Valley keeper, and the second was punched over the goal. After a scoreless first period, Valley scored with only 17 seconds left until halftime on their only shot of the period. It came from a long throw-in on the left side. LM had apparently tied it up on a free kick by Drew Misher, but an offsides call nullified the goal. Later in the third period, Drew Misher connected to tie it up for real as he drilled home a long throw-in from Levi Shapiro. A few minutes later, the Aces hit the post on a bullet from Misher off a free kick attempt. Two more good Lower Merion chances got away as Chris Schreiner and David Alton just miss. Finally, after controlling the entire second half, the Aces' pressure paid off, although it wasn't a pretty goal by any means. Levi Shapiro threw the ball into Michael Goldberg, who in turn put it toward the net. As Drew Misher got there, it was ruled that the ball was in, and with 15 minutes to go, LM had a 2-1 lead. The Aces seemed to sit back the rest of the way, and with only 5:50 left in the game, the roof caved in. Valley converted a free kick, and it was tied at 2.
Direct free kick for Great Valley.
Just a minute and a half later, they put it away with the game winner coming from a nice headshot off a corner kick. When the final gun sounded, it was a tough loss to take. The Aces were only 5 minutes and 50 seconds away from the Final Four in the state, and they had let it slip away. But they had to look on the bright side. They had won the Central League title for the 3rd straight time when nobody gave them a chance. They had also set a school record 18 wins on their way to a District 1 third-place finish and a place in the second round of the state playoffs. They all had a lot to be very proud of, and they did in fact this season get their share of the glory.
Taking a stand, you ain't gonna every move.